This is our second time doing this. This is our first time with a guest. We have Philip here, who's going to be talking about some very cool civic engagement projects he's been doing on top of Datasette. Alex is going to show us some of the SQLite VEC work and do some demos around embeddings. And if there's time at the end, I'm going to show a few embeddings and enrichments things. And I've also got some weird AI stuff that we might have time to cover as well. But yeah, welcome to. Oh, there we go. All right. Yep, we're gonna switch to the YouTube channel. Where's the YouTube thing gone? Oh, excellent. The comments from comments from YouTube show up on StreamYard. This is all coming together nicely. Awesome. Yeah. So Philip, yeah, please introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hi, thanks, Simon. So my name is Philip James. Across the internet, I'm known as Phildini. So basically, any Phildini you see on any social platform or GitHub is probably me. Very, very high likelihood of being me. And this is actually pretty timely because this work that I've been doing on civic data was a result of the 2016 election in an interesting way. I took that particular moment in time in U.S. history as a call to action to really focus on local government and local city council and board of supervisors actions to try to see what kind of change could I make locally where I live, which is the East Bay area of the San Francisco Bay in California in the United States. I'm not sure how many full international viewers we have, but so I live on an island in the San Francisco Bay, which is kind of neat. And I did some volunteer work with them, with groups in the area. And one problem that I kept running into is really interesting things were happening at these civic government meetings, which would be like city council, planning board, county supervisors, board of education. Super interesting things were happening. There was this massive backlog of basically every decision that had ever been made by one of these bodies, but it was almost impossible to discover because it lives in these systems where the method of exchange is a PDF. If there is search, it's normally just a search for the meeting date and time. It's very rarely search for what's inside these documents. And I'll make a note there because I'm going to toss some terms that people may not be familiar with. There is, for basically every municipality meeting, there is a forward-looking document that is the agenda. That's what they're going to talk about. And then there are the minutes, which are the record of what happened at the meeting. And so I started by trying to say, I want to be able to search across all of the minutes for the city that I live in. And at the time that I was trying to do this was 2022, and Simon had just published on the Datasette blog, or on his blog, about the transcribing a bunch of PDFs and putting them in Datasette using an OCR through AWS scraper. I took that as a basis for the work that I wanted to do, and then figured out how to do a completely local pipeline for it instead of using AWS. And that was kind of the origin of Civic Band. I don't know if this was deliberate, but I can no longer see Simon or Alex in. Okay, great.
Yeah,
There's
I
Alex
kicked
back.
us just
Okay.
to give you more space. If
Okay,
you'd
great.
like.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. Yeah, it's up to you. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't lost a weird
Yeah.
internet connection or something. And so that was the impetus for a Civic Band, which I will show you now, and start. I'll start by asking a question to people in the audience. If you live in the U.S. or want to name a U.S. city, and just drop that in the YouTube chat, it might be a city that I'm already tracking. Name a U.S. city. We'll see if it's one that people already have. Just because I think it's more fun if somebody gives me an example. Miami, Los Angeles. Okay, great. I don't know if I have Miami. I definitely have Los Angeles, so I'm going to share San Francisco. I also have, so we can do some things here. It'll be great. Um, ba, 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 ba. Let's see if I can. How do I? Here we go. Great. So can everybody see? Great. This is Civic Band. So we were tracking 151 municipalities, 1.4 million pages of documents. This is a public website. It's designed to be a public website. We're going to try to keep the data free and available forever because this is all public data. But let's start with, I know I have Los Angeles. So let's dig into Los Angeles. And so you can see when you click on one of these links, this is a Datasette site. And so every municipality that I'm tracking gets a subdomain that also includes the state on it. So Los Angeles.california.civic.band. And then right now, every Datasette instance has 2 public tables. It has meetings and agendas, and then a bunch of hidden tables because we're using the built-in SQLite full text search to be able to do really interesting things. So let's go into minutes. And so you can see here that what I've done is every page of minutes that comes out of one of these sources gets broken into a single page PNG and then transcribed into text, which is searchable. So I'm going to try to think of a search term that I think would be interesting here. Let's search for, I don't know, like film, because we're talking about Los Angeles. We can also talk about like housing. Oh, wow. Okay. Ran into a bug right off the start. That's incredible. Is that just this particular one is broken? No. Okay. Well, boo. That means that there's a problem with the full text search that I need to go fix later. So let's pick a different one just because hopefully one of these will actually work. Let's try. I do have San Francisco. San Francisco kind of a pain. I thought I had San Francisco. It may just be that it's not currently showing up on the list. Nope. Okay. Did I do just sf.ca.civic.band? No.
Let's
Okay.
do Palo Alto.
Yeah, Palo Alto we have. I'm pretty sure. Let's find out.
I just saw it a moment ago.
Yeah, great. Now let's make sure that the search is actually working and I haven't broken everything forever. So let's do something like housing.
Oh,
Wow,
no.
they're all not working. This is new. This is
I wonder
very
if you
new.
ran out
Okay,
of, I wonder if you ran out of disk space.
I don't think I did, but let's find out. Let's try searching for housing here. Okay, so
Nice.
there's just something weird with a bunch of them. This is Alameda. This is the one that I often use as a test site. And so you can see that, it's using the Datasette full text search. Obviously, I need to go through and like figure out what's going on with a bunch of these because there's a problem for sure. And by the way, each of these are running as a Docker container that is like each subdomain is a Docker instance that is just running a SQLite. That is running a Datasette instance on top of a SQLite database that contains all of this data. And it's because, it creates isolation and also means that I can update one site without having to update the entire set of data. And that's a deliberate choice, but I can also take questions about that later. So some things you'll notice, I have some custom plugins for Civic band sites that I've written. One is the like display of these PNGs, right? Because this is a path understanding all these pages, and then I've written a plugin for doing search highlighting using the new functionality in the newer versions of Datasette. I think what I need, the hook that I need, I think landed in either 112 or 113 or something like that. But so I'm doing simple HTML to like mark where a search term shows up, which is pretty neat. But because this is SQLite and because of the SQL, you can do like really interesting things where if I go into here and actually like view and edit the SQL, we can do select count star from minutes. Oh no, I count star, and my computer's being slow for some reason, probably because I'm trying to stream and too much. Meeting from minutes, group by meeting, order by. So we do count star as page count, order by page count descending. And if I've done this correctly, which I believe I have, you should get a really interesting, like, right. So here you can see like for each of the bodies that we're tracking, how many pages are we talking about for each of these meeting bodies, basically. The other thing I've done is you'll notice this date thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Are these entirely PDFs? It's all PDF output at the moment.
So we get this is a great time to talk about pipeline actually. Like, how do I get this data? So I have written fetcher. So every city or every municipality, and so we can go back to the full civic.band, and you can see the site here. Right, there's counties, there's like BART, there's transit agency, there's mostly cities, but there's towns, there's park districts, there's school districts, there's the Judicial Council of California, for example. Um, each of these municipalities can kind of choose how they make this data available. They have to make it available because there's sunshine laws and it's public data, but they get to choose how. Now, that means that every city could theoretically write their own custom site for hosting all of these. What ends up happening is that there are companies that kind of specialize in legislative management systems. And so they basically go around municipality to municipality and pitch on like, hey, you should actually use us for hosting all your data. And so it turns out there's less than a dozen of these, right? I think I'm currently fetching from 6 different system providers that I've like written fetchers for. And there's, I think, at most 10 common ones that I find, unless you get a city that has truly like written its own stack top to bottom. And so the first pass is for me like figuring out, okay, where is the municipality or the city hosting its data, and do I have a scraper for it already? If I already have a fetcher for it, then I've got a script that I can like generate a new instance and then start go fetching. If I don't have a fetcher for it, then I decide like, is it worth doing the fetching for? So I fetch all the PDFs, and the reason it's all PDFs, even if it doesn't, so it's normally always PDF because that's the like exchange format for this data, right? Like everything ends up as a PDF at some point, except when it ends up as like sometimes it's a straight HTML page, or sometimes it's a like a Word document. I end up saving everything as PDFs. And the reason I do that is because I'm not even trying to extract text from like the PDF tree, if that makes sense, like the XML tree. I'm not even trying to extract markup text. And there's a reason for that. And actually the reason for that is like, let's look at Berkeley. Hopefully Berkeley will load. Of course, I'm having every possible demo effect today. Okay, let's do a different one. Let's do, gosh, I hope Port of Oakland works. If we scroll down and do Port of Oakland, yes, great, good. Okay, let's go to minutes. And then, yes, actually, this is perfect. Right, 1927. The reason I went to Berkeley is because when Berkeley is working, Berkeley goes back to 1905. But 1927, you see it's got this like this is not, there's no text in the tree of this PDF, like this image you're looking at here. It's a photocopy, right? And so because I can't predict, I can't know whether it's going to be a well-formatted PDF or a PDF that's going to be actually a picture of a page, or like a Word document that's pictures of pages, or an HTML page that's picture of pages. I normalize everything to PDF and then run Google's Tesseract OCR across every PDF that I come across.
Is that Tesseract OCR that you're running yourself, or is that via a Google API?
Mm-hmm. Nope, I'm running it entirely locally.
Nice.
And it's actually quick enough, right? Like obviously the biggest portion of it is the first load. But once the first load has happened, deltas are actually normally pretty quick. A first load can take a couple hours, but then deltas will take like refetching Alameda at this point, where I'm just fetching 2024 because I've got everything back from that, takes like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? It's pretty fast. And so I can just run that on a machine. I literally have a Mac Mini sitting on my desk that does all of this.
Wow. Is that the Tesseract OCR? Is that the little command line tool that you're using, the Tesseract OCR command?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so the whole pipeline is written in Python, and I shell out to Tesseract. And the other thing that I do as a result of this is, and this is where there's like interesting future development. So I normalize everything to a PDF. I split those PDFs into per page PNGs, which once upon a time was just like a waste artifact. And then I realized I could put all those in a CDN and actually show them side by side with the text. And so like at some point I'll have the functionality to be able to like have people submit corrections if it's wrong, right? Like if it did it poorly, like great, I would love for there to be a little button that says like, hey, I want to fix this. but at least you can like go look at the original and be like, oh, okay, this word was a misspelling and it was actually supposed to be like, it said pert and it was supposed to be port or something like that. So it has these PNGs of pages of PDFs, and then it saves all of those. Tesseract then saves all of those output as a text file. And so I have, as part of the directory for each city site, I have a text file for every for the OCR output of every page of every PDF. Why that matters is because you might notice that this whole process I'm trying to make really decomposable, right? Like if one step in the process fails, I can still do the rest of it with whatever data I have. And if I just want to rerun one step, I can just rerun one step. I then take that set of text files and I rebuild. This is actually a new development I just did. I rebuild the entire database from text files every time. Right, so it creates a new database from all the text files where it's loading, it's doing like a bulk insert for each table of all of the text files into the database, like the one that you're looking at here. What's nice about that process, I used to do it where I would do like the OCR and the text and the load in the database all in one step. But by separating it like this, it means I can actually do additional text processing on the whole set before it goes into the database. I'm not doing that yet, but that's kind of the next step is like, if there are interesting text transforms I want to do just on the text files, I have them and I can add that to the table pretty easily. Sorry, you were going to ask something.
Yeah, how much data is this now? This sounds like gigabytes, right? There's a lot of text.
many gigabytes. So the size, it's interesting that I actually have two different sizes on disk. The size on disk on my Mac, which is running everything, is 220 something gigabytes. But the size on my CDN of just the PNGs lists it as like 350 gigabytes. So I'm not sure if there's like orphan data in the CDN that I'm just not aware of, or if something very strange happened in translation. But yeah, the size of the sites folder, which is where everything kind of lives in the code base, is listed at 265 gigabytes on disk, right? Where most of that is the PDFs and the images, right? The actual databases are very small. They're on the order of like, I think the biggest one is maybe, actually I can tell you how big the biggest one is because that's always going to be Maui County, Hawaii. The size of that database is 535 megabytes, right? But the size of the like
meg, right? Okay, and that's with
and the reason for that
as well, right?
That's with the full text, and the reason that I always look at Maui County, their minutes include full transcripts. Let's see if this one is working. Maybe the gods will smile on one of our lookups. So if we look up Maui County, you see it's 121,000 pages just in Maui County, right? Will the gods smile on us if we search for like? I know this is like the easiest thing to search for. Hey, we actually got a search working on this one. Great. So you'll look. It's like if I scroll down, you'll see. Here's literally like the full transcript. They've actually got a stenographer that's like looking and like doing the full set of all the text that's ever said in a Maui County meeting. This is also a great place to show that so I've written a lot of custom plugins, and we're going to be doing more plugins and hopefully releasing some of these plugins to the wider community. Because I
would love to see how your search highlighting plugin works. I've been trying to imagine what that was doing.
I promise you, Simon, it's the dumbest way possible. We can talk about that. But the other plugin that is kind of neat is this one here. You see there's this like date link, and this is doing something very straightforward and simple. And it's the kind of thing that it would be cool if there were a way to do this natively in Datasette. Because it's per page, you often want the full context of the minutes it's sitting in, and that's what this does. This is it's basically every time it detects a date in this column, it links to the search of that date, so you get all the pages of the minutes. It should still be with the highlighting still intact if I've done my job correctly. Let's see if we search for pineapple in this. Okay, it looks like it didn't quite work. Maybe it's just not case sensitive. Oh yeah, okay. So for some reason it's only doing the highlighting case sensitive. I need to look at that. But because I've added this, like the way the search highlighting works is partially through this little query parameter. And so it'll still do, now you've got like the full minutes
that, right.
from that date with the highlighting of what you were still looking at, which is kind of neat, right?
Nice.
And that's kind of, so I guess I'm looking in the chat if there are any questions. Rody asked, are you using the FTS5 highlight function? I am not. I don't know what that is. So I would, find me in Discord and I'd love to chat about it more. And this is actually a great transition into like, okay, what's next here? So there's a couple things that's next here. One is if you want your city or your municipality on this list, great. Please tell me. Mostly I want people to use this data and then they tell me what would be useful about this data. So like, because of that step that I mentioned where I'm taking everything as text files and then generating the database from the text files, that means that if there's text pre-processing that we want built into these databases, that's now like one line of Python as it goes into the database, right? Like, I've designed it to be very modular and very easy.
I've got two.
Yeah.
I mean, two things that jump to mind. So one of the features of Datasette, a plugin that I've wanted to build for years that I haven't done yet, is essentially a sort of saved search alert plugin. So the idea is that you can configure a thing saying, anytime pineapples are mentioned in a new record, send me an email. And then once a day, you get an email saying, here are the new pineapples. I mean, look at this, right? This is the thing most in the world.
I have started building that as a separate app. So it's not live yet, but I would happily give anybody who's interested access to it. But there's a site, Civic Observer. So it'll send you an email alert anytime you have a matching search term.
That's it.
And so right now, I'll tell you how I'm doing that, just because it might be interesting for thinking about like how to make things interesting for Datasette. Every time one of my databases updates from my script, it pings Civic Observer saying, hey, this thing updated. And then Civic Observer goes and runs the search against the databases that search is being tracked against. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. It's like webhook one way, webhook the other way.
The challenge I've been having thinking through this, it's the thing where you want to do things that are new since last time, right? So I don't want to get an email that every day gets longer and longer as there are more search results. And I've got thoughts about that. Yeah.
That's why I did it as a separate app for two reasons. One is right now none of the Civic band sites are messing with auth at all. It's all just read only. And keeping track of last search results is very easy in a separate. I mean, Civic Observer is a Django app, but I'm just tracking like what was the last set of matching results that I saw. Are there new ones?
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, so I've got a mechanism I've been playing with is something I'm calling SQLite Chronicle, just for the want of a name. Basically, it's a trigger-based mechanism where every time you update a row in a table, it increments a version number in another table. So the idea is that you can just insert and update rows, and then you can say, okay, I last looked at this when it was at version 500. Show me just the rows that match the search term since version 500, and that will give you back the new stuff. And it means that when you're building something like Save Search, you persist just that version number. So I can say user 57 subscribe to this search to this SQL group, and the last version number for them was 500. And then every day I do effectively the delta on the database. And I think it's going to work. I mean,
this gets to actually the next thing that I'm thinking about doing, which is expanding off of your Django embed dataset plugin so that I can wrap these in a Django app. And there's two reasons for that. Reason one is they don't need to all be their own Docker container. In fact, the best model for this from a resource use perspective is the old Heroku model of like, hey, when something's not being used, spin it down. But I'd have to build that myself in some way, and so maybe I could do that just by having Django manage everything.
I can help you with that.
I would love help with that.
Fly.io have scale to zero as a core platform feature. It's not particularly well explained, but when you know it, basically what you do is when your app's not receiving any traffic, you literally call sys.exit1, and your app will stop running and Fly will stop charging you for it. The next time an HTTP request comes into that app, Fly relaunch it for you. So I've been building Datasette Cloud on top of that, and it works actually really well.
And this is so that is true, and that's a yes and. The yes and is you have a business motivation to understand how to do that with Fly very well because of Datasette Cloud. Remember that I'm running currently 150 and growing Datasette sites. Managing 151 Fly apps is a daunting challenge compared to what I'm doing right now, right?
Are you running everything on a single physical server?
Yes.
Is it Hetzner or somewhere?
There's a beefy-ish Hetzner box that is running all of these. Yep.
Very nice. Yeah.
As well as the self-hosted analytics for this. So there is analytics on each of these pages, so I can see who's looking at what. But it's entirely self-contained. It's running as an Umami instance, again as a Docker container.
There's something else that I was just looking at this morning. So I love using language models for like structured data extraction. You pipe in some content, you say, give me the names of the people in this. And it turns out that that's a small enough task that there are smaller language models optimized for it. I found one this morning that is like a couple of 100 megabytes that is specifically, so it's can run locally, specifically trained for structured data extraction. Hang on, I'll drop a link in.
Yeah, please do, because I would love to see. Yeah, so that's the other reason that I was thinking about doing the that I broke it out into having the text to database step be its own step is now I can do LLM powered transforms at load instead of trying to front it with an LLM, which would be very expensive and slow. If I know what sort of transforms I want to do as I'm loading the data, that can be very fast and quick, right? And so that's kind of the next frontier here.
And presumably across all of your instances, you're still only talking about like 10,000 pages a day at maximum for new content?
Oh, in terms of how much is being added? Yeah, not even.
Yeah.
Right. So like, this has been running for, maybe close to a year-ish, if that, and we're at 1.3 million. So, you can, that's the other thing that's nice about this data is like, it doesn't get, it grows with the number of cities, but each city is only adding, a few documents a week. Right.
The worst case scenario is that Hawaii County, which is a half a gigabyte for everything going back 100 years. Like it's I think somebody in the chat called it medium data. It's not quite small data.
Yeah.
It's edging towards medium data.
And so the other thing that I will call out, because for the people who are going to care about this, they're going to care about regional data sets. That's the other reason I broke out the text processing pipeline, is now I can tell my script, hey, all of these things are part of Alameda County. Please give me the data set of everything in Alameda County. But I might put that, like this data, the Civic band, I plan to be free forever because public data belongs to the public. Putting together the regional data sets, I might charge a small thing for, because that's more of like activists want it, or like, NGOs want it. And like, there is a hosting bill associated with running Civic band that I would like some help with.
Right. Well, cool. I think this is absolutely this right here is the dream. This is what Datasette is for. It's for building this kind of thing. So the fact that you've got all of this working is so exciting to me.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate your time. I'll hop out pretty soon here, but I'll just say like, hey, anybody wants to visit civic.band, email hello@civic.band. I'd love to chat with anybody who's interested in this, or find me in the Datasette Discord. I hang around.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Philip. This was really great.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Cheers.